Let's see.
What's up, man?
Yo, I'm live. I'm figuring out some stuff, but welcome. How's it going? Can you hear me? Oh, I am muted or something. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am good. I'm just figuring some things out here.
Trying new stuff.
Right. Let's try that. My camera is being all funky. Let's. Camera's being all weird here. I'll push ourselves live as I work through the technical difficulties.
Oh, there we are.
Okay, that works. Boost HellOnPaws' audio. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, it works. That's good. Beautiful. All right. Well, how's it going? Welcome to my show.
Yeah, cool show on Twitch, huh?
Right. For sure. Yeah. So what have you been up to?
A lot, man. Life's rapidly changing. I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Got a marriage coming up, so that's pretty exciting.
Oh, snap. When is that?
1 month. Tomorrow to be 1 month away.
Whoa. Where are you guys getting married?
Macon, Missouri.
Hey, yeah.
So you know where that is?
Yeah. Why do I know Macon? Yeah, it's like right south of
It's like between Columbia and Truman.
Yeah. My wife's family is from Macon.
It's like between Macon and Moberly.
Okay. I don't know where Moberly is.
It's right there, too. It's all the same.
Okay.
It's rural Missouri.
My wife's family is from Shelbina, which is a small town just east of Macon, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. That's cool. Is that where you are from, or is that where they're from? Or
no, we're actually both from Indiana, but because we follow her job, it took us to Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah.
And so that led to us like planning our wedding there. And then, as we found out recently, as soon as that's over, we're moving to a whole other state. So.
That's exciting. Well, before we get too far into stuff, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give your little background and spiel, because there's a lot there. And every guest I have on, I don't try to sell them. I just let them sell themselves. So,
how deep you want to go? How far?
I don't know. Just give us, I guess, the overview. I don't know.
All right. So esports wise, I was a teacher. I was in my third year teaching, and the school received a grant for esports. And so being that I'd always been involved in just gaming, stuff like that, and was involved in athletics, I saw it was a great combination of the two. So I kind of ran haywire with it. Had a blast, got it going, had 100+ kids come out. Kids that had never been involved in anything. So it was students that were, I remember there was a situation where they were like, hey, we want to get together and name the team. And I was like, what do you mean you want to name the team? I was real confused what they were talking about. And it was because they never considered the school mascot.
Interesting.
I was like, our mascot's the Red Devils, and you're not going to find a better esports name. Come on now.
True.
And they were like, oh man, yeah. It's because they'd never been connected to the school that way. They just, school was somewhere they went and they went home.
That's cool.
And so that really motivated me. And I saw a whole new avenue of education of kids that weren't being reached. And so, but that also happened to be the year of COVID. It all hammered into full gear then. And also in the year when COVID hit, we moved to Columbia. And so I got involved a little bit in Columbia, still kind of keeping my kind of helping out with Richmond, trying to keep them afloat. And a trend happened where every year they had a new teacher that was taking it on, because doing it in high school is hard. Like, I know a lot of folks know that are in collegiate because we got our roots in high school, especially if you're teaching, because you have full class loads, and then if you're doing it the best you can, you're going to be there every single night.
Yeah.
On the weekends, and so it's hard to find those personnel. So each year I was teaching a new teacher how to do it, and each year they would burn themselves out, and so I was learning more and more, to the point where it was like, do a couple things. Like, let's not go full 17 esports. I know that's what the kids want, but let's slow roll our way into it.
Yeah.
Which led me to being involved on like smaller stuff, like just doing small tournaments, like trying to figure out digital tournaments, just trying to be involved in esports any way I could. And it led to IU East, which I'm a graduate of, opening this position. And I'd already knew a lot of the people in the area. It's in the same town that Richmond was in. And of course, on a school this size, like, a major focus is recruiting and retention.
Right.
And so the ideas that I had, and then having the network I had, landed me this dream job. And so then I had to start getting creative on what I wanted to do with this program. And that's the catch up there.
Nice. Yeah, I met you when you were a coach at a high school in Richmond. Me and Bilski, who's now at Michigan State, drove down. At the time, he was just one of my assistant coaches.
Now he's a legend.
Yeah, we drove through cornfields, which is most of the Midwest, and then landed at this school. I don't even know how I ended up visiting your school, because I don't really do recruitment visits, but I'm glad I did. Like, it was awesome.
The thing I remember from that trip was that I tweeted it out because I just wanted some stuff for the walls.
Oh,
and I wanted the kids to see that, like, college could potentially be a thing.
Yeah,
and you're like
a
bro, what if I just came?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, by all means. I don't think it was very fruitful for you.
Nah. Well, I mean, it was, because we started a relationship, which was awesome.
That was awesome.
So,
and then there was another thing I had was I had a board on the wall that I had highly organized.
Yes,
I took pictures of it. Pictures.
Yeah, it was way beyond the organization that I had at that point. So, yeah, I always have people asking me, like, for advice and questions. I was even talking to a new director this morning who just got hired, and was asking me, like, so what should I do? Or, like, what advice do you give? I'm like, I don't know. I'm learning just like you are. So I still learn stuff from new folks. I learn stuff from high school coaches all the time. Yeah, it's just what it is. But I'm glad I could get you on here. We got a lot going on in your life, which is exciting. But glad you could find some time to kind of talk. Because, all right, so the basis of the conversation for today, you came into the position at IU East and started trying to find ways to help the local high schools, because, like you said, it's difficult at the high school level if there's not, like, a dedicated teacher, or if they leave, it kind of dies. I had the same experience in my program, where I started. Thankfully, now they have somebody in the position that is killing it. Way better than I ever was. But that's so common. And you had a really cool, unique solution for it that I thought it was really awesome. And I think it could be something replicated across the country to benefit a lot of programs, high school and college. And I wanted you to talk about it. So without further ado, do you want to just, like, give us the overview?
I can run through
first.
it real quick if you like. So when I got here, I had that looming thing over my head. I remember I talked to you about it too. It was like recruitment, like, how am I going to hit recruitment numbers? And especially, like, at this type of school, like, we're a regional campus of IU. Like, we're not even main IU. So we're a regional purpose of that, and we meant to serve the region in a public university. And so when I got here, and in my, like, overzealous to get here, I didn't ask a lot of the pertinent questions that I know now, like scholarships, that sort of thing. And I knew it was pretty much off the table until we showed value that esports is real, because the faculty didn't quite believe that this is a real thing yet. And so I had to look at and be honest about the school and who we are and what we can achieve, right? So I knew we're never going to be in like last week's show, like that top 10 earners, all that stuff, right? I'm not going to be able to recruit to pull that. And I honestly, I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing a student here that was like, oh, I'm grandmaster in this and I want to come to your school. Like, I don't believe we're the school for you, but I will help you find a school that's for you.
Yeah.
Just because we're not there, and I don't want to convince a kid to come that's not going to have value. And I want to serve the mission of the school, which is to serve the region that we're in. And so my first thought was like, hey, I was at Richmond. I have talked to every teacher that's run Richmond. Like, that's gonna be a honey hole. I got to jump in that, right? It's dead in the water. Like, there's a teacher that does it. He does like 2 hours a week. They're doing play BS or play versus, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's a bad deal. So I was like, I gotta fix that. So how can I fix that? And so talked to the principal, had it set up, and then it kind of came down to the initial agreement that we came to was we will run personnel wise, we'll run the lab, we'll get the kids in there. One of the things I was pretty adamant on is I wanted stipends for whoever we sent there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was like the former interim coach that was here who still wanted to be involved, or some of our students, which once I thought about students, I was like, man, this is actually opening up a pretty big door. And so when I started to think about who we are and how we're going to have to recruit, and there's not going to be short-term success, we're not going to recruit each year and win off recruiting and that kind of talent. And so I wanted to show some kind of value to the students that we had and the students that we recruit, as well as like, I'm a competitor. I still want to compete, right? Yeah. Like, we don't want to go out every week and get smacked. So how do I get to that point? And so I started thinking about, for the kids here, how does it benefit the kids that I have under me that I'm responsible for to partner with these high schools, right? It serves me by recruiting, it serves the school for recruiting, but how does it serve my students? And so I started thinking about, like, first of all, esports kids, they want to do esports in some way when they graduate, right? Whether it's like as their career, or if they want to do it, just be involved, or some kind of way they want to be involved. And so, so I was trying to think, like, okay, how can we get them experience with esports while they're here? And if it's not something they want to do as a career, how can esports benefit them for the career they want to do? And so this can serve as like an on-the-job training or an internship, right? And so if we have, say, 2 students go run this program, then for one, I wanted them to get a stipend, so they'd get some kind of pay for it. 2, they would get hopefully some kind of credit that would benefit their degree. And then 3, it would give them hands-on experience to be like, hey, when I was a senior in college, I was a director of a high school program, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep snowballing, right? So if you're a business management, then you're managing and you're running a budget of a high school program, right? And so you start to think of it that way, and you start looking at, like, what about my graphic design kids? So we're trying to do everything in-house it's our long-term goal for all our creative stuff. So those graphic design communication students can start to develop their portfolios. And I was like, well, if you graduate with a portfolio of just a bunch of, Red Wolves, that's cool, but it's not the greatest thing. So if we have other high schools, now you're developing a portfolio, right? And then it popped in my head, I don't know why it didn't in the first place, education students, right? So if one of the biggest needs for high school esports is people to do it, what if we have education students that becomes like their coaching certificate when they go through, right? And so they graduate, they go to a school and say, hey, I have experience doing this. Let's do it, right? And so this serves the school because now they have a esports program that's serving those kids that are underserved. Those school mascot was. And it's keeping a teacher from having to have on that giant workload to be able to meet that need, because teachers want to meet that need. And they'll get burnt out trying to meet that need. And now it's something they don't have to do unless they want to, by all means, anytime they want to do it. And so that's where I was seeing, like, hey, this is providing a value that it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's unique. I don't think we're the first to do it, right? I just think this is our process, and it's showing some kind of value. If you're going to come here, here's some things you can look forward to and work towards if you're going to be here, right?
Yeah.
And so we started looking at, like, okay, we have Richmond, but we have multiple kids that want to do this. We have recent grads that want to do it. So then it kind of expanded out to, okay, there's a few high schools that want to do it. Well, now the middle schools are like, well, heck, we want to do it. And so I'm like, well, okay, now I don't have enough people. And so all those things kind of came together. And then there was 2 big things I try to keep in mind the entire time. One is everything I do, I try to be ethical, right? So if I have 3 high schools and 2 middle schools under me that for one, like back to that competitive thing, we're starting to take kids, because in this area there's maybe 4 teams total out of like 45 high schools.
Yeah.
And so in middle schools, and so the kids that we are getting, they don't have that team experience, right? So
Right.
even if it's not like, hey, I can't develop you talent in League of Legends, I might as well like play Flappy Bird, because that's the skill level I have on League of Legends, right? And so I'm not going to help you there, but I can help you on, here's how you communicate as a team, here's how you can work as a team, here's how you can be an in-game leader, that kind of stuff, and help develop students into becoming leaders that have that in-game knowledge, and now they have a leadership capability. So if we can work with them from middle school all the way up, and if they come here, then we have a student who's been doing esports for 5, 6, 7 years, right?
Right. You've
so
effectively created a talent pipeline,
yes,
starting in middle school within your local community, and
that's the long-term goal, yeah.
And it's through the lens of, we have students who can coach, and and these high schools are looking for coaches. Like,
right.
That's the basis. And I'm like, that makes, like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who's like, whoa, that makes so much sense. Or like everyone else is like, yeah, duh. And I'm like, yeah.
Like I said, I don't think we're the first. There's definitely other schools that are doing it. I was just trying to think of like,
but no,
what's the best process that we can do to make it essential to our program?
I don't know if there's any program that's that deep in providing the resources. Like, I think there's a lot of programs helping like states at the state level, and I think there's some that are helping some districts at the district level, but it's more consulting. It's not like, here are my students, they will coach your team. All you need to provide is the space, or the students. Maybe we even use our own space. Like, that key, I think you might be the first. Now, I might be wrong on that, but I don't know of any other program that is supplying coaches to local high schools at this point.
I think it's a no-brainer. Like, once again, esports kids want to do esports.
Yeah.
And this sets them up with, when they graduate, like, I came from the high school background, you came from the high school background, and now they have that, like, hey, I've managed this. It's not at the collegiate level yet, but I'm working my way there, and I have a resume now, right?
Yeah.
And there's 2 big things I want to add to is, one of them is, like I said, I try to be ethical. Is I know these schools that are underneath of us, not all the kids that go through these esports programs that my students are working with are going to be a fit for us.
Right.
Like, if they're a valedictorian that did all AP classes and they're going to be a doctor, not to knock the school, because I mean, I went here, but it's probably not best serving them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, so I try to keep that in mind. And there's some kids that, hey, it's just, this level of college isn't in the books for you right now, even though you went through all of this. So a community college, like, go, like, get caught up there and come to us. And so I wanted to make sure, as I did this, that the doors were always open for anyone else to recruit, right? Because to the core, it's what's best for the student all around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was, I try to partner with the state org. Like, anytime I contact the school and say, hey, like, here's kind of what I'm offering. Do you want to, like, would you like to talk? If they say yes, if they don't have a program, then I call up the state org and I say, hey, I'm going to this school, blah, blah, blah. I'd love for you to be connected. The same way with the education stuff, Nate for Indiana High School Esports Network and I have talked about, like, potentially down the road, maybe not this coming year, but the year after, of let's tie the state org into that esports coaching certificate, right?
Right.
And so that way they're building that network and that connection throughout the state.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a couple people in chat I see a couple of Chew, including, who says Maryville's entire staff coaches high school. I've seen a couple other, and they say Oakland had some players who coach high schools. I've seen some players or some programs have students coaching high schools, but I haven't seen it as a part of, like, the college program's philosophy or, like, strategy. Like, when I was at Aquinas, we had a player who was coaching Rocket League for a local high school, but it was just like, they asked for a coach and I said, yeah, let me ask some students. And then that was it. It wasn't like integrated into the culture and expectations. And that's where I think the difference is. And I think it's so awesome. Because I think, from my perspective, it's so needed from both sides, like the college and the high school side. And yeah, if the high school kid doesn't come to your school, like, that's fine. Like, if they go off and be successful elsewhere, like that's a testament to what you and your program have provided. And I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
And I think it's amazing because once again, it serves both sides. Like the students that are here that are going to be coaching and learning how to be, directors, doing that kind of stuff, then like it's still a benefit, right? Even
Right.
if we don't recruit every single kid, it's still a benefit.
Right.
So
Right. And and getting the job experience for players, it's so interesting to me because for most students, like that 3 to 5 p.m. at least a couple days of the week is like wide open, and they're just
right.
not doing anything. Like most of them are done with classes at that point, in my experience. So there's this unique opportunity there. Lesamos says he's in talk with some Jersey school about setting up this opportunity for our players. That's awesome. I think
Absolutely
this
awesome.
is something really cool. And really beneficial. Did you get a full year, or did you get any experience like putting this out there? Like, did you guys do this past spring? I know you guys are a new program.
No, so this past spring it was setting everything up and then finding our kids that are available now that want to do it, right?
Got it.
And so we have the first one's going to do it. He's a recent grad. He actually got an AmeriCorps position on campus.
Okay.
So he'll be working as a student success coach while also coaching our Rocket League team because little car soccer is something that I can't wrap the physics around in my head. He can. So, and then he's also going to do the high school program. And his goal is he wants to do a grad assistant somewhere. So for him, he's graduated a business degree, being an esports student athlete because we're under athletics. And he's going to have Rocket League coaching, high school director, and a student success coach in AmeriCorps on his resume by the time he leaves.
Nice.
And that's kind of what the end game is. We want you to have that. Here's the experience you got here. And that's the value of coming here.
Yeah.
Like one of the greatest benefits we have is our tuition is like super low. It's like $7,000 a year, right? Yeah. And more than half of that gets knocked off for nearly everyone. And because of that, athletic scholarships aren't a huge thing unless you're like one of those big three, right? For that volleyball, basketball, or women's basketball. And so that's why I wanted to find that value. Like we're not giving you money, but I want you to have value by coming here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. What do you think the challenges are going to be in this type of plan or idea? Or what have the challenges been so far?
So two of the initial challenges, one is time commitment for college students, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why any school that I've talked to, I've tried to make sure I have 2 students that are available and want to do it.
Okay.
Right. And then I try to limit like how many titles they're going to do because I don't want them diving off being like, hey, we have kids that want to do 9 different things. And I'd be like, you're going to have midterms at some point, right?
Yeah.
You have study tables here. You have that kind of stuff. So what we want to look at is that time commitment and make sure we can meet that time commitment to serve the school, or restrict the title, which is going to, and then it hurt me at first because I felt like your kids won't be served, but growth takes time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other one is school buy-in, right? So Richmond, it's a constant fight with Richmond right now because their leadership is going to take the easiest way, right? And so a weird thing happened where they didn't tell the teachers in time, hey, you're not going to be doing it next year, right? And so then the stipends didn't open up. So what we're trying to do is figure out if our internship office here will pay them as an internship for the year, right?
Oh, interesting.
So I don't want them doing it without getting something out of it.
Right.
And then I ended up talking to those teachers, and they had no idea that this partnership was in the works.
Nice.
And so I was like, excuse me? And they were like, you totally need to do it. We're only doing it because they made us because we wanted to do D&D.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, first of all, awesome. Secondly, like, holy smoke, like, talk to her. Like, we can get it going. And so, and then there's a few schools that still, and I think this is common throughout the entire country, that some schools see the value and they're like, let's do it. And they absolutely see that value that first year. And there's some schools that are like, I don't know if we want kids just playing video games.
Yeah.
I was like, well, they're not going to be in English with a controller getting wild, right? So, so it's just convincing them that this is a thing.
Yeah. Another common opportunity that I've been seeing is we have high school programs in the area, but they're coached, quote unquote, by those teachers who know nothing about most of the games. Maybe they know something about one of them. But there's this opportunity to get students to coach. But the question, and I guess what I need to figure out is like, what's the process of that conversation? How to get it approved? What does a job description look like, or internship conversation, if that's the route we want to go? Like those things, like, yes, there's an opportunity there, but how do I capitalize? And maybe I've thought about the idea and I should just pull the trigger of like doing a coaches clinic for local high school coaches. I think that's just like a no-brainer for me, that like I just need to take a pause from what I'm already doing all the time and just think and just do it. Yeah.
It's hard, man. It's hard. There's always something to do.
It is. There is.
So like, I lost my train of thought, but yeah. So anyways, that's who we are as a program, what we're trying to develop. And one of the things too, and I forgot to mention this earlier, this is where my head was going, is I want as many of my students that have the time that allows them and the organization that allows them to actually coach.
Yeah.
Especially like that middle school, high school level, because once again, I'm an administrator. I don't have that gaming knowledge.
Yeah.
Like to get them where they need to be that level competitor, right? But we have like Lemon, who was in the chat a minute ago, Giga Chat Cosplay. He's ranked master in League of Legends, and for our level, that's amazing, right?
Right.
And so if him and his team can actually start coaching, then in my head, it's the same way. Like, okay, now by coaching, they're thinking through what they're doing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
and so that's a form of development that's on its own.
Or a deeper level of thought. But it also like prepares them for the next step. Like we're seeing a lot of students who are graduating from our programs go on to be coaches and directors. Right. And some of them might not even have coaching experience, like we didn't have coaching experience, or very little. Like I had coached girls tennis at the high school level for like 2 years, and that was the extent of my coaching experience when I started. So yeah, and it also allows them to explore, like, maybe this isn't something I want to do. Maybe esports is my thing, but coaching isn't. I think it's a win-win on all fronts. You mentioned, so you were identifying 2 students for the high school program to coach at. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the premise behind that, the thought process?
Time.
Yeah.
Time. So like, I want some diversity in it, so I don't want to send like, hey, 2 Overwatch students because you're on the same team go to this school, because you're on multiple titles, right? And so part of it was time, is that they can split their time, right? Yeah. And so they're not, hey, I have to be here Monday through Thursday night for 3 hours each night when I have my own coursework, my own homework. And a lot of our kids in this area, just because of the social economic status that it is, they all have jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why it was some kind of pay out of it. But for them, it was just time. Like, hey, you'll be there 2 nights a week, 6 hours total for the week. Get it rolling, and then myself or the former interim, who's actually coming in soon, we would check in on them. Right, we would be available anytime they needed us. That's the other thing I offer too, is a lot of schools they're scared of that financial investment, right?
Yeah. Like
the middle schools are like, we don't think we can afford it, because they came out here to talk to me, and they came in like, we'll never afford this. I'm like, no, you're not expected to.
Yeah.
Like, this is a $150,000 setup. Like, you're not expected to, and that's okay. So let's talk about what you can afford and what the kids are absolutely gonna love, right? And their thing was like, well, we know we could get that, but we can't do stipends.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, then let me come in and like train your people and have them. They can have me on Discord anytime they need me.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe down the road we can get it to that point. And it's kind of my fallback too, of like, hey, if I don't have kids available that are able to go do this, and I know I can have a rotating yearly basis for the school, then our advisement's always there, because we want to be like, for this region, we want people to think esports. We want them to think IU East, right?
Right.
And that leaves a competitive thing for me, because I'm competing with Ball State, who is a way bigger animal than what we are, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it gives me something to push myself on. So,
how big is enrollment? You're about 4,000?
Yeah.
Less than that? Okay. Just want to give everyone kind of a context on that, because I've listened to plenty of talks from folks at massive schools who talk about like the amount of students they have and resources they have to like lend high schools. And it's easy for someone at a smaller school to be like, I just don't have students that would be interested to or able to fulfill that. But 4,000 is a
Well, that's so
good
where
number
we're
to
at
see.
right now. It's our coming into this fall is going to be our second full year, right?
Yeah.
Second full year with a full-time person at the helm. And so we rely heavily on that transition from almost like a club to a team, right? On campus students. Some did great transition to that like student athlete expectations. Some didn't, and that was okay. They're still doing the club. They're happy. Um, and then new student orientation, like kids that we just didn't have the reach yet, so they're there, right? And then recruiting. And so starting in late January, I was able to find 9 students who weren't going to come here that now have a home here, right? So we're going to have right now about 24.
Nice.
And then we're going to have 4 schools under our helm, 2 that will be directly in the house, right? And 2 that will be advising, and I can do drop-ins.
Wow. That's a lot.
So,
That's awesome. That's super cool. And how many of those are middle schools versus high schools?
so 2 and 2.
Okay. That's very cool. And are those like the closest middle schools and high schools to your campus?
So one is, like I said, the 2 middle schools are Richmond middle schools. The high school is back in the works now. And then the other one is a rural school that's about 25 minutes away.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. Well, what other advice would you give? Anything that you've learned from this little shindig so far?
I think the best would be just to be able to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Because you got to be part salesman, part knowledge base, part like just champion of your own program, right? Which we all are anyways, but in part just trying to be creative and show. And so I always come back to that value. I want to make sure it's valuable to everyone around me.
Yeah.
And so just being creative on, are we showing that value and holding that metric to ourselves?
That's awesome.
And just long-term growth over short bursts.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation that I am, right?
We're really bad, I think, as esports coaches and directors at like taking a step back and being like, we don't have to do all of this year. Like, we don't have to do all of it right now.
Right.
I've seen a lot of coaches burn out, and a lot of coaches just like maybe underperforming everything because they were trying to do everything at once.
Right.
And it is important, like it's in my experience, is more of a marathon than a sprint, but it's hard to learn.
I think one of the best lessons that was learned here was why the interim coach was here, and then being an NAIA school, like obviously they wanted that NACE membership, right?
Right.
They want to be linked into NACE, NAIA, all of that. So they went in the fall, went full NACE varsity, let's go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty early on, Rocket League gets just blown out by Northwood.
Oh, that's a rough start.
It was rough. But so we had like all our kids who, champ 2 and stuff like that going against Northwood, and they still talk about how they scored a goal.
Nice.
And I think that's the best thing in the world.
Let's
right?
go. Yeah.
And they loved when they watched the Worlds, like seeing Northwood go. They were like, man, we played them.
Yeah.
And it's just an understanding of being honest with who we are, is that we're not that level, right?
Right.
We're not going to recruit at that level.
Right.
Like, we're not going to have the hockeys of the world, and that's okay. And so once we came to that understanding, that's when it came to being creative and coming up with this.
Right.
And in those lessons learned of like, hey, we're not at a varsity level yet. Let's open Premiere. Let's check that out. Let's see how we exist there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's fair.
And there was reasonable success, and it was just a lot of lessons learned. Like, hey, here's what we need to improve on. Here's what we need to look forward towards next year. One of the other things, you look at that 4,000 number, is a good chunk of that is online, because a large majority of IU online goes through IU East.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so when we sent an email out last year saying, hey, if any on-campus students are interested in esports, hit us up, there was a tremendous amount of online, right? And so last year, I think we had 3 or 4. And so as all this talk was going on, like, I'm back here like, oh my God. You know what I mean? And so I saw the value of it. I also see the value of, our main goal is we want students on campus, right?
Right.
But I also like the opportunity of having online. But so that number has actually dwindled down probably about 2,500 on campus
Okay.
that pretty much like commute in.
Got it.
So.
Makes sense. Yeah, Lesmo said the industry's bad at long-term thinking. Yeah, I agree. He also said you never know. Sometimes you get the right pieces together and get competitive. I think he's talking about his own Rocket League team that is came out of nowhere and is looking pretty fierce this upcoming year. But yeah,
I think that's the long term. That's the long term is, hey, we have these kids that have all of this team experience that I'm not going to say every school doesn't have, but a lot of schools don't have, right?
For sure.
And familiarity with each other. And so that's kind of the long-term goal. And then once we get there of having those, like, hey, every couple of years, we're going to be making some waves, but we're also going to have those years where it's not a good year.
Yeah.
So,
I get that.
We're the Pacers of esports.
I'm sworn and grown to hate them. So I still remember the brawl as like a very impactful on my childhood development.
Yeah. So I made me hate Detroit until I was an adult.
Yeah, makes sense. We're the bad boys. Yeah. Well, we talked business. Let's talk more casual. What are you playing lately?
I don't know if you guys know this. I'm a Fall Guys Pro now.
Oh, yes, you are. You have earned money from
I've earned
Fall Guys.
money.
Yeah. Tell us
Actually,
that story.
Can I tell the whole story?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, a couple weeks ago, Coach Antor here raids the USO because Fletch is running the USO.
Yeah.
I jump in. I'm a veteran myself, so I had experience of like reaping the benefits of USO when I was in. So I hang out, I watch, I follow. They said, hey, we're doing a Fall Guys thing. And I stream casually for fun as I try to learn the inner workings of stream so I can help my kids learn the inner workings of streaming. And the easiest one for me to do is Fall Guys because I'm not going to take it serious, right? At least that's what I told myself.
Right.
And so they mentioned, hey, we're doing a cash prize Fall Guys tournament. So I reach out to the student just graduated, like, hey, do you want to do this? He's going to Rocket League Worlds soon. He goes, yeah, I'm going to win first place, and I'm going to have more money to go to Rocket League Worlds in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So we do it, and it was an awesome day. Like, Fletch did a great job. Like, his crew did amazing. What we didn't know was that, like, that, like, there's actually, like, kids that are, like, Fall Guys pros that, like, look for tournaments and go and just, like, take first and make money. Like, the kid that got first that day, he did 2 tournaments that day, and, like, his total winnings for the day were something like $1,700.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, why am I sweating doing head of esports? I need to focus on Fall Guys.
Seriously.
So we ended up getting third, which came from $100 each, and so we're like, I'm saying I'm a Fall Guys pro now because it's a fun thing to say.
That's more prize money than I've earned playing video games. So,
so leading on to this next thing of how everything somehow ties into college esports is about 2 days later, the kid in the duo that got first reached out and said, hey, I saw you did esports. I'm ranked like something in Valorant that was way above my head on Valorant. I want to come play for you. And I was like, buddy, like, you're going to pay out-of-state tuition to come to have a team that's not going to be able to support you. I'm not the home for you. And he was like, oh man, I don't know what to do, but like, I know I want to do this. And he was already, I think he's going to be a junior. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, hey man, like, let me connect you, because you kind of seem like you're kind of out in the world. And so reached out to like you and a bunch of other folks, and like, you're like me, you're like, Vala, what?
Yeah, we don't do Valorant yet.
So I reached out to people, and they started talking. I don't know, he had it in that whole thing. I'm going to get a full ride. And I was like, those are few and far between.
Right.
Be kind of realistic about it. And so I know he's talking to folks, and I was like, so Antor sends a raid to USO. They do a Fall Guys thing I get into for fun. And now I'm helping a kid get recruited for Valor.
That's awesome.
Like, what?
That's so
what in the world, man? So
look at I guess every action has a reaction of some kind. But yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Lesmo says, love the fact that you're helping students find the right place for them instead of bringing them to your school. And that was a common theme we've had today, which it's so refreshing to hear because I've seen just so many students get recruited into programs that just aren't good fits, and then they transfer out after a year.
Absolutely, and that's why it's always in my head. And like I said, I go back to why I developed the high school, middle school program stuff to begin with, is that value, right? I want to make sure we're meeting the value of whoever. Let's go bring the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, my wife just brought me Chick-fil-A.
I don't even have one of this time, dude. But I want to make sure I'm meeting that value, right? And so if that's the third time a kid has reached out and been like, "Hey, I want to come here. I want to do esports." And once I talk to him for a second, I'm like, "All right, you're just kind of lone ranger in this. You have no support. You're from a school that doesn't have esports. You have no connection. Like, I can't just be like, tough break, man.
Yeah,
try somebody else. I just can't do it." And I also don't have I don't have an enemy to be like, "Hey, come pay 20 grand for a school that's not going to show you the value for a degree you don't want, so you can play Fortnite."
100%.
Right? And so, yeah. So, like I said, there was a kid that was Fortnite because I just put in like the Ohio high school because we do in-state tuition for the neighboring counties, and some kid from Toledo or Akron or something was like, "Hey man, I'm your guy. I'm coming." And I was like, "Buddy, it's not worth it for you to pay out-of-state tuition for what we offer."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so I say that, but we come with like a full IU degree because we are a regional campus. But at the same time, like I understand who we are and what we're doing.
Right.
And so I think I ended up getting him connected with Akron, and he went to do a tryout there.
Nice. I think that's so important, is like knowing what your school can offer and the value that they bring and being realistic with that.
Right.
I completely agree with that. I've been telling people, I haven't told anyone recently because no one's really asked, but there's so many opportunities for you to make a name and a reputation for your program, no matter where you're at and the resources you have, because so many people are focusing on competition, but there's so many other options. So like your program with developing your local scene is so cool. Boise, St. Clair have done like the broadcast. They've really leaned into that. Like no one's creating content really at all. And that's an opportunity where someone could come in. I know Maryville's been doing some documentary and content stuff, but like the vast majority of schools just aren't doing much content. Like there's just so many opportunities for you to make your mark and your program to make a mark.
Right. So I've actually talked about the content stuff because we have a communications degree that comes with marketing, social media management, and video and animation production, right? And a lot of students, when they see like, oh, animation video production, they think they're going to like work for Pixar next year or something. And the reality is not that. Like this level is going to get you like local news channel stuff.
Yeah.
Or this ever-growing world of internet and esports and org culture. So we've looked at that so we have a TV station on campus, right? We have this degree. Now we just need to offer to get the students to come and connect it together. And we're just not there yet. Hopefully the next year or two. If anyone has any great ideas, by all means, DM me. But so it's something that's on it, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Is like sometimes you have to sit back and be like, all right, I need to think about this and prioritize.
Right? Yeah. So, and there's some schools with like TV stations on campus. I haven't heard of one that's fully successfully integrated their esports program with their news station at the college level at this point.
Right.
There's a couple smaller examples, some crossover, like some collaboration, but nothing like fully integrated where all their matches are coming out, except maybe Full Sail. Like I think they might do all theirs on their TV set. But yeah, there's an opportunity there.
Mine was more on the thoughts of there's that state-of-the-art equipment there that can be used, and the guy that runs it wants to do more stuff with it versus just like, hey, we do a half-hour show to put out on public access, right?
Yeah.
And so let's leverage the equipment that's already here, that's invested, that has the grant, to serve our students in another way. Right. And by the way, that Fall Guys tournament I did, somehow they got Boise to broadcast it.
Yeah. They USO contracts Boise to do those.
I did not know. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Because when I watched the broadcast, I was like, what in tarnation?
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like, they followed me for one whole round. I was like, I'm clipping this.
That's
and
awesome.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, Boise actually like contracts out their broadcasting services. Like Doc's pretty famous, or like he says it all the time of like, we're more of a news station with an esports team than an esports program. And that works for them. Like if you have a product and the ability to like make money and teach students those real life skills, like it's awesome. It's a great opportunity.
absolutely. And it just comes back like what you said, like regardless of what your resources are, it just takes some creativity and some thinking, I think, to make your wave. Like I'm not going to be with Northwood because they're killing it, but like I will never be them, right? I will not be that
Right.
name of competition,
Right.
right? But how can I do instead necessarily a boys like, hey, we're a news station with esports program. Mine is every student that leaves here will have our esports program is going to benefit their career in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And that's what I want for what we're doing.
That's awesome.
And then just innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always go back to like, I just have like this never ending thought of like, we're so early, like we're so early in what this could be. And we're going to look back in 5-10 years and be like, wow, we knew nothing back then. We all did everything wrong. We were all dumb. But that's like just growth in general and learning, but we're so early. It's crazy.
Absolutely. That is here's some spice. I know you like your spice.
I love my spice.
One of my biggest pet peeves when I look at esports is I go into especially with social media, is I realize that my knowledge base is not as high as a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I realize a lot of folks that have loud voices in esports don't necessarily have like they want what's best for the student, but they haven't fully tied in that the college experience with esports is still like almost an org mindset.
Yes.
And I noticed that because a lot of the things they say speak in absolutes. And anytime I see that, I'm like, I get you're confident what you're saying, but you just shut off all conversation in a field that's like 5 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think most of the successful coaches right now from a competitive standpoint got their start in the semi-pro and pro scene, like, and doing small org stuff. And they just have the connections in those industries. They know the inner workings of esports to be successful.
Right.
So that guess or that inkling is very much correct. But then the other side is like the people who are integrated on the education side don't necessarily understand the workings of the recruiting and player development from like in a strategy standpoint. So like there's these
Absolutely.
two areas of expertise, if you will, that hopefully will move much closer together as the years go on.
I think they both exist in a good way. Like I said, I think if they could just kind of like just weave on the edges a bit and learn a bit from each other, right? Because I think there's a place for both to exist perfectly fine, right?
Yeah.
There's a place to exist of like, hey, I'm Maryville, like I'm gonna be competing for those national champions every year because there's those kids that want an education that want to do that, right? And that's great, that's perfect. But there's also those kids that necessarily like my region, like we're never gonna dominate in probably Valorant or League of Legends because just because of like the cost of living and the poverty rate, parents aren't buying big Alienwares. They're getting a Switch or Xbox. So a lot of my kids are coming up with controllers in their hands. And so that's why we lean like Rocket League and Smash and stuff like that. And we'll have a home for kids that have League. Like we have a League team now and Lemon does great with it. Levi kills it. So I think that's instead if they learn from each other, because I obviously need to learn more about esports and the functions on how it goes. But I think it could pay in the other way too to learn more on the education side.
I think that I think the learning is happening. It just doesn't happen as quick as we'd like it. Like I think so. We look at like Dan, for example, at Maryville. His program's in their 5th or 6th year at this point, and just knowing how Dan operated Maryville like 3-4 years ago, like maybe soft isn't the right word, but he's definitely creeped more towards the education side in a lot of his philosophies and goals. Yes, he's still competitive, but compared to where he was, it's very much different. Like he's definitely shifted. And I'm seeing that with a couple of the other directors when they're getting into their third, fourth year, is this shift more toward, like a little bit more towards the other side. It just takes time. But
absolutely.
yeah,
And I
agree.
love to see it because I'm out here learning from it. I'm watching it. Right. And so I love to see it. And that's where that spice comes in. And like, when I see the absolutes of like, this is the way it has to be. I think Doc said it last week, right? When everyone was fired about something, is like, every school is going to have its own path and be who they are.
Right.
And you're just going to have those minded folks. Like, we'll always be that education minded with esports, right?
Yeah.
Versus esports with education and trying to intertwine what direction we're coming from it as.
That's true. I wonder how different that is from traditional athletics too. I mean, like, you're going to have coaches who understand, like, we'll never be national champions, but they're still, I think in the traditional coaches side, when you've been coaching for 40 years, yes, the education is super important, but they also see the value in the competitive side. So like in traditional athletics, I think you see more of a merging in most programs. But a lot of that also, like, especially the education side, comes with maturity, with hyper competitive folks. It's like after years and years, like at some point you're just like, yeah, the grind of only being competitive, like, kind of wears on me. And we might have a bad year. Like, what's the goal then if we have a bad year?
Right.
And then seeing students succeed. And I think, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I always go back to, like, we're so young. We have a lot of, not necessarily immature coaches, but coaches who just don't have a ton of life experience or a ton of experience coaching and working with students. And there's just, yeah, I'd like to think most of the problems will be solved with time.
I think I try to keep myself in that mindset too, because I'll have like social media interactions where my initial thought is, this person's a director, but I'm speaking to a child. And I have to like draw back for a minute. I'm like, okay, no, like they're an adult. They're just learning. Right. But I have to be honest with myself of like, I was in the military and then I got 2 degrees and then I went out and taught and I worked in the veterans field for a while before I, in the last 3 years, have jumped into esports full swell because I enjoy it and I get the fulfillment I want out of it. Right.
Right.
And so I have a lot more of that life experience than a good chunk of esports directors do. And I get it. I get being a recent grad of a college and that title of director is right there. Yeah. Right. And so you want it. And then once you get it, it's what do you do with it? And you haven't given yourself time to make those silly decisions that the rest of us made. Right.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't, so, I mean, coaching college was not the first thing I did out of school. I was 6 years through like 3 different careers by the time I found collegiate esports. So some of these kids are right out of school. But kind of the general thought, and I use this at the NACE convention a lot when people were talking like about certain coaches and like just not understanding what was going on with some folks. And I'm like, no, I've met all of these people that you might have ill will towards. They're not, I don't know if I can say a word, but they're not butt munches. They're just, I used idiots, but it's more of they just don't know what they're doing yet. Like none of us know what we're doing. Like, but that's like my experience has been talking to everyone that I've talked to so far. It's like, they're not a-holes. They're just dumb, or they're just learning still. Like
I like the learning part. Like, I have to remind myself of that because I'll have the interaction. I'm just like, what in the world was that? And then I'm like, you know what? Like, you look at like their profile and you're like, this guy just graduated last year. He's still learning. He's got a lot of stress, a lot more stress. Can't vouch, I'm dumb. Yeah. I'm still dumb. Don't get me wrong. But give this person time to grow, right? Like they have that weight on their shoulders. And there's youthful dudes that are way better than me. Yeah. Like Maryland.
Yeah.
I dream to be where Sergio, like his like, knowledge and skill level and maturity. And I'm like 10 years older than that dude.
Yeah. So, true. That guy's right out of school too.
Yeah. So like, it's not saying it can't be done, but I'm just saying like I'm like an old boomer here, but like kids can be kids there, right? So, I have to remind myself that there is that time, and I said this whole high school like development stuff came out of my own life experience, right? Of
Yeah.
seeing those kids be like, oh my gosh, yeah, our team name should be the mascot. That makes total sense, right?
Right.
Came from that life experience that a lot don't have, right?
Yeah.
And I could not imagine being, hey, I'm 23, I just graduated, and now I'm the director over and have to lead 22-year-olds, right?
Right. Right.
And especially in this field. So,
Yeah.
and especially a lot of the college students, and I experience it here. Of one of the first things is like, what can you teach me about this game? I can't teach you anything about it, but I can teach you how to be an effective communicator. I can
Right.
teach you how to learn leadership and coping mechanisms and that sort of thing. But as far as the
Yeah.
game goes, and so I have to remind myself of that a lot. And then also, I think a lot of these like young dummies or whatever we're going to call them, learners, is that I think in 5 years they're going to see some pretty cool stuff out of them. Like if they grind through it,
Oh yeah.
I think it'll be some pretty amazing things. I don't want to offend your entire checks. I know a lot of them are probably who I'm talking about. But
a bunch of degenerates sitting in my chat.
But no, and I have no doubt in 5 years they're going to blow me out of the water. So, and that's totally fine. Kill it.
Yeah.
Do great things for your students. Absolutely, all day.
Yeah.
I'm still going to judge you a little bit when you make your silly decisions because I'm older and I'm allowed.
Yeah, I don't know. I continually get told probably weekly that I should stop tweeting or I said something dumb on Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe one day I'll learn. But I found it as a very effective way to have conversations with people I don't normally have conversations with, as well as teaching others maybe learnings that I've had.
Absolutely. I've tried to learn that there's times where it's like, hey, I can provide something here.
Yeah.
Right. And there's also times where it's like, I've learned a very good skill and it's knowing when to shut up.
Yeah.
I may have just abused that, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there are certain topics I won't tweet about, but I'm also going to tweet some stuff that's stupid, and that's fine. Like, and I like when people like call me out on it, because then I can start thinking of like, okay, am I really stupid? Like, where's the thinking difference here?
It forces reflection, right?
It does.
You to be like,
and sometimes in an unhealthy way, but
if everyone's calling me an a-hole, there's a chance I might be that.
Exactly.
I need to think about this.
Right. Yeah, and I have that regularly on my Twitter, which I enjoy. Although other people might not. Cool. Well, we're about out of time, but before you go and before I log off, first of all, where can people reach you if they want to get connected with you?
I'm HellOnPaws on everything, whether it's any social media you go to or gaming. I've somehow unfortunately locked up HellOnPaws.
Nice.
There's that. I would say the school, but first public announcement, I'm actually leading the school as the head of it because my fiance got a way better paying job in Des Moines, Iowa. So I will be moving there. But fortunately, I will be able to stay as a volunteer as like a recruiting coordinator, that kind of to help transition the person taking over, who also happens to be the best man at my wedding.
Nice.
So I'll still have a deep connection here, and being that volunteer role, part of that will be still fostering these high school development stuff. So if anyone wants to pay me to come help you recruit high schools, let me know.
That's awesome. Des Moines is a good place. That's where Grandview is. Right. I know that's up towards St. Ambrose and Chase, Newcomb. There's quite a little bit out there.
He's in Davenport.
He's in Davenport, so it's a couple hours off.
Next year, this year I'll be able to come. Next year, come lurk outside of NACAD and wave from the outside.
You should. No, you have a seat right next to me. Yeah. Will you be teaching or anything in Iowa? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I would like to stay remote or travel based, just because I'm at the whims of her position, because when you got a sugar mama, you just got to do that.
Oh, show. I get that. That.
I still want to be obviously involved in esports, is why I said, I got to move, but anyway, I can still be at the program that I've built and got here. I want to stay, right? I want to be involved. Yeah. Barring I get paid to do it somewhere else. But Yeah, so that's the plan right now. It actually paid enough that if she would have taken a job in Indiana, so we make more money me quitting my job
Oh man.
to go for her job transfer.
Yeah, that's a hard
So
one.
that says a lot about where pay in esports is right now. So
What?
I'm
No.
rooting for Illinois State to keep doing their thing. Um,
True.
but yeah, so that's where I'm at. But I'll still be IU East. I'll still have my IU East email, and that's on the website right now, and I'll still be listed there. So I guess you can find me there. But yeah, any way you want to connect or chat or whatever. I know Claypool and I are supposed to meet up soon to talk about small school NAIA recruiting type stuff.
Nice.
So
Cool.
he's the best hype man in North America, by the way. I need to give him that shout out.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It's
you
always a
having me.
pleasure. I'm excited for you. Good luck with everything. Should we raid Bearded Blevins?
Ooh, yeah. What's he playing, Fortnite?
Yes, he is. So Ninja's brother is a streamer, and I just happened to watch a YouTube video he was in at one point, and I decided to hop in his stream, and I chatted like once. And HellOnPaws is like, Antor, is that you? And then Justin Pelt from UST was like, wait, Antor, is that you? And I'm like, why are you two in this chat right now? Weirdest small world. Oh,
Pelt
he just finished.
Partnered with. Oh, did he just finish? Pelt is partnered with UST. I'm sorry. Blevins is partnered with UST.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
They have something going on.
He did just end. Darn it. That's fine. What we could do is we can raid Alvea Sanctuary. I've been watching their subathon. Man, there's like no one ever streaming at my time. It's usually you. HellOnPaws, you're supposed to be streaming. No, that's fine.
We'll Stack Up.
Oh, is Stack Up on?
StackUp.org is their name.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do Stack Up. They're a good organization.
For military veterans.
Yeah, good organization. We'll send you guys there. But I appreciate everyone for stopping by again, and thank you, HellOnPaws. Again, glad we could have you. Let's see. And
absolutely, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I love talking about this stuff because I learned so much while I do it, and anyone else wants to connect and have more of these conversations, I'm so happy to do it.
For sure. Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk next week. Peace.
I hope that was all right for you, man.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
I had to add in some spice for you.
That was perfect.